Lorraine.
Hi.
Thank you so much for doing this.
No, thank you for having me.
I asked the first question for everyone, which is, because I feel like it's so relevant, and we've just been talking about it as well.
Yeah.
How has your lockdown been? How are you? How are you coping? Or not?
Yeah, it's I think it goes through like waves.
Yeah.
It was good and bad, but I think lockdown generally has been a very good experience. Just it almost like it's like the world forced us to just pause and take a moment to like look at your life and or reset and look at like what you know, things could happen like that, just like that, and to this scale as well. So many things are so uncertain, so you have to actually take the time to look into yourself and your life, like what's the purpose, you know, what's important and what's not. That's a lot of that kind of, you know, evaluation, I guess. But yeah, I think lockdown's been really good in a way that it has forced me to take the time out to really sit with myself and take time off. You know, like I told you, I've been off social media for a couple of months, and it was really quite good.
Amazing. I've never done that, but
really
I know
nice.
that I should.
Yeah, I think it's always, I mean, I have been, before I actually did it, I have been thinking about that a lot too. Until when it comes, I think, because I also then, you know, because of the situation, I moved in with my boyfriend for a couple of months, and that was interesting too. To actually learn about a person like so closely, and you don't have any escape.
Yes.
So when we have any conflict or any problems, we have to actually talk about it. And it's the same with myself in the situation. Like over lockdown, there's not a lot of work going on, but then, you know, given what we do a lot, or what I do as an actor, everything's so uncertain.
Yeah.
And the whole world, like, is uncertain,
Yes.
you know.
But in terms of communication with your boyfriend, or obviously just in general in relationships in your life, would you say that was a new thing for you? So like instead of, you know, going away and kind of...
Yeah, I think I thought I was quite communicative. I thought I was, but yeah, I think lockdown has given me the time to really, you know, look into that area of myself as well. Maybe I'm not as open as I thought I was. Like, I'm quite open as a person, but when it comes to your own issue, you don't realize you do that, you know, a lot. And you're like, yeah, fine, you know, or I'm this way, and I know I'm this way. Yeah. So you kind of leave it like that, and
your face.
Yeah, and it comes back to you so fast and so hard. Even with my family, actually, because of lockdown, I've got to spend quite a lot of time talking to my mom. And I think, yeah, that had actually changed. I didn't even think about it. Actually, it was during lockdown that I think the whole dynamic between me and my mom has changed completely.
Wow.
Yeah.
In what way?
So I think in terms of how close we've gotten because of lockdown, she was going through her own problems and, like, you know, mental health issues, which is something that, you know, in my culture, in Asian culture, is not something that we talked about, because it's like, oh, if you have, you know, depression, or if you have some kind of you know, emotional or like mental health issues, like the scale is very extreme. Like when you talk about that, it's like, okay, you're crazy.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So there's no like in between, or like, okay, let's talk about this, how you feel. And we don't really talk about feelings.
Right.
And I think because in our culture too, like parents always hold that authority, you never get to a point where you're friends or you can be friends. It's not really an option on the table.
Okay.
Like, even though you're in your 20s, 30s, like you are grown adult, but you never really get that with your parents. I would say, like, for most of my friends as well, like in our culture. So that has always been like a block where I feel like I wanted to establish that with my mom someday, but it always feel very like impossible. It's not it's not something that I could accomplish in this lifetime. It's like, it's so far away. But because we spend every day at least like an hour or two talking to each other, through this communication, I found out what has been bothering her, and like I actually was able to help her find the roots of where all these blockages are coming from.
Wow.
That was really amazing. It's life-changing, actually.
It is life-changing.
Because my mom's very stubborn. And in a way very old school, but her stubbornness came from her survival mode, and actually I have that too. And from talking to her, I felt like I've also unlocked a lot of things. Especially, I think, just generally, not even specifically in Asian culture, but mother and daughter has always had like this interesting dynamic. By interesting, I mean like quite difficult too, just a challenging dynamic. So I feel like I've accomplished a big thing during lockdown because
That's
of
huge.
that. Huge. Yeah. So it was a massive discovery for me, I think for both of us too, because I think through helping her, I helped myself too. And I think that generally is it's quite a common thing that humans do. I find a lot of friends that also like to help others, because in that way they also help themselves.
Yeah. It's funny you're saying that, actually, because this experience,
it's all about that. It's also very much about
my intention was to help people who are dealing with their grief and feeling alone and all of that. But in this, I've realised this is helping me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Because sometimes, I guess when you're helping others, you can articulate, or your thoughts you pull away from your emotion. So your thoughts are a little bit more clear. Yes. And in helping others, you find clarity, which is really good, because I think I found a lot of similar patterns and behavior, and even like fear or like trauma was like generational. So it carried on from your parents or my mom to me, and the things that I would see her doing, that I was like, oh, that's not good, that's not healthy, but I do it myself too.
Right.
So in talking to her, it was really good to also have her like open up more and more, so I can also get more information to understand where those feelings or those natural defense mechanism are coming from. It was good, because I think my mom too have not dealt with grief very well, or she probably thinks that she's fine because she had let it go, and so I guess in a way to kind of going back to the grief subject, my family, like, it was my mom, my brother, it's my mom, my brother, and myself. It seems like we, over the 10 years since my dad passed, I feel like I'm the one who's still feeling the most emotional about it, and sometimes I question myself when I have those moments, because my mom and my brother, they don't seem to be as I won't say as affected because we're all different, but I guess I question myself, am I not letting go of something?
Yeah.
Am I not doing the letting go as well as they are? But it's not a competition. Right. It's just like, oh, is that something that I have to look into? Because I start doubting myself.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I have heard or seen them cry or talk about them going through a breakdown or like missing my dad or, you know, husband on the same level. And I feel like it keeps coming back to me every now and then. Sometimes I could sense that it's coming. Sometimes it just hits you like that.
Do you talk about it as a
family? Every time when it hits me, they are naturally the first two people that I wanted to talk to, because, you know, no matter how close you are with, you know, your partner or your friends, and they might even know you better sometimes than your family, but in this very incident, they are the people that will understand you the most, because you also feel like they're going through it with you. We're all on the same boat in this subject matter. So you wanted to seek help from, you know, them, or even just to get some sort of relief and comfort. But if I'm honest, it has not been that easy. Like, and I think I've stopped reaching out.
Wow.
Because I stopped reaching out when it hits me, not on other things, but just that I'd rather almost like deal with it on my own.
Because you're not getting what you need.
Yeah, and I felt like not just that, but also maybe I'm catching them at a wrong time where they're actually fine, and I brought that back into their life in this moment.
Yeah.
Maybe they have already had their breakdowns. Maybe they've already dealt with it not long ago, just that I didn't know. But the fact that I'm like crying about it, you know, and obviously we're family and they love me, they see me like that, they're gonna feel sad. And then I brought up the dad stuff, and so everybody is like in this, you know, spiral.
Yeah. And you do feel like you're bringing them down.
Yeah, and I almost feel like maybe it's not the best thing to do. So I'm still finding the balance. Maybe I could still reach out, but maybe it's good too. I just let myself have the breakdown first, or kind of release the most intense emotion, and then make that phone call. Especially them being in another country, you know, I need to kind of have my release first,
right,
and then reach out and be like, hey, just missing dad and wanted to talk, instead of like bawling my eyes out and calling them, get them all worried, and probably in that way they don't really know how to deal with it as well.
Can I just ask, so when you lost your dad, which we need to come to, and like how it all happened, but what was the sort of initial, so has it been a case of not that much communication about it? Did it kind of get to a practical stage, or was it not that talked about from the get-go?
Since he passed until now.
Yeah. So like the initial period, let's say the first few years, was there any period where you felt you were all in the same place and you were all going through it together?
I think the only time I've really felt that was when I found out that my dad passed, and then I was in Los Angeles at the time. I've just left home, my first year of uni, and so I actually didn't even get to see him until like the funeral. But I think when I went back home, there's a period of time that you kind of, as a family, you know, you prep the funeral, and there's a lot of things, you know, admin stuff, but you know, also we took time to, and there's also cultural like ceremonial procedures that you kind of do. And so that was one night that I'm not sure if that's like a Buddhist thing or like a Chinese thing, but I think it was the night before the funeral, you're supposed to all sleep in the same room.
Oh, wow.
So me and my brother actually slept in the same room with my mom. We all slept in the same bed, in my mom's and dad's bed. So yeah, we all kind of lied there, and
oh my god, that's crazy. Sorry, because we had the same experience.
Yeah, it was. I actually don't remember exactly what we talked about. Maybe not much even, but just being together at that moment was when I felt like we were really together going through it.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom actually woke up in the middle of the night screaming. But thank God my brother was there, and it was just, and I'm glad that I was there too, obviously, to kind of be with her. It wasn't something like, scary or something haunts her, like nothing like that. It was just, I guess it's things that you can't explain sometimes. It just happened, but yeah. And I don't know, maybe now that I think about it, maybe even that is also a telling sign of my mom actually kind of bottling up so much inside of her. But yeah, that moment was definitely, like, I would say that I felt like we were all kind of going through it and dealing with it together.
Mm-hmm.
But to answer your question too, I don't think we've talked about it much at all.
Wow. I think, so for us, I don't know about you, but it's sort of crazy, the things we do. And I don't know if it's because we cannot, that depth of pain is so intense that you can't face it. So you almost go into, when there's like different members of your family, we all take a different role.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with things like that, I don't know, I had a similar experience with that I can't go to sometimes in my mind.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for going there, because I can feel myself going, no, I'm not gonna, like with the memories.
Yeah.
Because we did the same thing. And yeah, that's...
I think also most of the time, when it hits me is when the thought of missing someone but not being able to talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
That was hard because my dad's actually the person that I felt like I talked to the most. He's almost like my dad and my mentor, and it's never like the best friend, but it is in a way. Like, it was not so much about, like I said, it's still very much parent and child, but somehow, like, in our heart, I felt like we connected really well, more than anybody else, because he's always like really, he's just a really, really kind, just almost near perfect human being. Not because he's my dad, but just like, living life now, I've met so many people in my life, and I still think of a lot of the things that I've observed when I was young from him. He really is, I think, one of the best role model I have in life. And just losing that was hard.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that I really struggle with.
Yeah.
Feeling very angry that I've literally lost my best friend. Because I think when you're younger, well, for me anyway, I'm like one of 5 children. So when we were like children, my mum was obviously just raising us. But as an adult, getting into like being older, we actually became friends. Like 2 people actually becoming friends. And that's what I feel like we've been robbed of. And it's really hard to accept.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so hard because there are moments in life where you feel lost or weak, especially having that kind of relationship with your parent. You know, we're very lucky in a way because we have that relationship with our parent, for sure. Because some people don't even have that, and that's another kind of grief, another kind of, you know, pain. But also having a relationship that's so special, and you know, that bonding is so strong, and they are actually, you know, spiritually to your support. Losing that was very hard. There's so many moments I just wanted to talk to him. Yeah, so you know, that was hard because not only, you know, there are moments like after he passed that I wanted to talk to him, but it was very hard to in the beginning because, like I said, I didn't actually get to see him when it all happened, and I was a month away from going home. Like I was, in less than a month, I was gonna be back in Hong Kong for the first time after I moved to the States. And I guess maybe in the beginning, I don't know if I was ever angry. I was just really sad. Just really, really sad why the timing has to be like that. Because, you know, I was literally on the phone with him, or on Skype actually, with him talking about like what we're gonna do when I come back, and you know, things like that. And it was hard because I felt like there's so much that I haven't like finished doing and talking, and it all happened so sudden because my dad he passed in the middle of his sleep. Yeah, so he wasn't sick. There's no signs or nothing. He doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink, he's a vegetarian. You know, it's it all happened so sudden. I got the news from my brother when I was on my way to school for a rehearsal. I was on the bus. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. That is beyond. Oh my God.
Yeah, I was in shock. I was paralyzed.
Yeah. Were you with anyone?
No, I was just on my own on a bus because I don't drive. So when I was in LA, I just take buses to school. So I was on my own, and got a call from my brother. Actually, if I backtrack a little, I had my ballet class that morning, and then I was on my way, you know, back home after class with a friend, and my mom called me in the afternoon. With the time difference, it will be in the middle of the night in Hong Kong, like 4 a.m, something like that. And it was all weird because, first of all, my mom never really was the one who called me.
Okay.
I would talk to her when, you know, if dad calls or I happen to call back, and, you know, and usually not that time. So I was a bit surprised that she called me in the middle of the night, and she wasn't crying. But it did feel weird. Like I just sense it. So I was like, "Is everything okay, Mom?" And she's like, "Yeah, no. I just wanted to call and check up on you to see how you're doing. Since I woke up." I said, "Oh, why did you wake up in the middle of the night? Is everything okay?" Because usually my dad is the one who would wake up that early, because his job is to he trained racehorses, so he will go see like horse training like early in the morning, crack of dawn. Like he wake up at 4 and then be out the door at 5ish. And I thought because my dad had to do that, and my mom was woken from that. So I was like, "Oh, was it Dad that had to go to work and he woke you up?" And then it was just like silence for a few seconds. I was like, "Oh," but then he was like, "Oh, no, just calling to check on you." And I was like, "Okay, is everything good?" He's like, "Yeah. Where are you?" I was like, "Oh, I'm at a friend's place having lunch." He's like, "Oh, okay, good. All right. I'm gonna go back to sleep and I'll call you back." And I was like, "Okay." And then I didn't think too much about it, but it did feel like it's weird, like it's just weird. But I was like, okay, maybe she literally is just like, because we don't talk that often, so I thought, okay, maybe she just woke up and decided to call me because it's during the day over there in LA. So I carried on with my day, went home and get my stuff ready to go back to school for rehearsal. And on my way to school, I got that phone call from my brother. When he called, I knew something was up, because it's all too weird that Mom happened to call the same day he's calling, and they're all calling at all these random times that they usually don't call. So when he called, I was like, "Hello," and he was like, "Hey," really calm as well. And that makes me even more like, "Oh fuck, what's going on?" I thought, is something happening? What's going on? Mom called me earlier and now you're calling me. And then it's like he didn't even hear what I said. He just went, "Hey sis, I need you to stay really calm. Where are you right now?" I was like, "I'm on a bus going to school. Just tell me what's going on. Is it Grandma?" Because I would think, if anything, it must be like Grandma's, my granddad's passed. So I thought maybe something happened to my grandmother. And he took like a second to gather himself, but I could hear his voice shaking. And he was like, "That's not here anymore." That was I don't have a word for that. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I just didn't know how to take it. Like it actually felt very unreal. It just felt very, very unreal. I remember I just held the phone up. I couldn't say a word for I don't know how long. And I think I might have screamed and then started crying. I just kept saying no. Why?
Did it feel out of body?
Completely out of body. It's like everything is going like spiraling around you, or the mind feels that way, but you're paralyzed. That's how it feels. Yeah. And then thank God I was like close to school, so I think maybe I screamed too, and then I was crying. So there was actually another person from the play that I was in, she happened to be in the bus, but she was all the way up front, and she saw me. So she came over and said, "Hey, are you okay?" And I just, I couldn't really react. I just kept shaking my head, and then she guided me like down, like, out of the bus, and I just sat myself down on a bench, and I think me and my brother just cried on the phone.
That is another level of trauma. I think, did you feel, because any experience that I've had I have never had an experience like that, but how did you go home?
I still
you...
went to rehearsal.
Did you?
I did. I think it's
see what I'm talking about, the crazy things that you look back and you think, how did I do that?
I know. I think also it's the discipline in me. I don't know if it's like cultural or like it's just how I was being brought up. The responsibility, needing to, stay on top of everything, and because it's not just me, like a rehearsal involves other people, and so I need to show up, and I felt like I should. So I just cried for I don't know how long outside, and then I went to rehearsal, and I think because I have ran into the girl on the bus, I think she then told the director, so then they are aware that I'm not showing up on time, or she's just out there, that just happened to her. So when I show up, they're like, "Lorraine, like, what are you okay, and what are you doing here? You need to go home." And then it was really sweet. The director had somebody who had a car and drove me home. But I got home and I didn't stop crying until I don't know what time. Like, it was maybe 8 p.m. I started crying until 2-3 in the morning, and then I cried myself to sleep for a bit, woke up crying again. I was just not functional for the first few days. Just couldn't stop crying. But I'm also glad I did. I felt like that was bigger than me, but it also was literally what I needed to, like, I need to just release that pain.
Yes. Do you still do that now?
Yeah, and that's why, I think that's why it's good. Although I know we talked a little bit about how, when you're always so busy and it's like in hustle mode, you don't actually take the time out to breathe or take the time out to let yourself deal with all sorts of traumas and emotions, which happens to me, quite a lot. Just out of the blue, I'll have a breakdown. But now I also understand that sometimes it does, catch you off guard, and missing someone like that intensely, and that feeling of never being able to actually do anything about it. That's what's hard, and so it could lead to a breakdown. But I think it's good to actually have that, because I think going back to like my dad, I think I strongly believe that the cause of his death is stress, because he doesn't really have any so-called bad habits that cause most of the time cause the death, but I think it's stress that took him,
and that's hard in itself.
It was I know you have also like mentioned, you know, what was the lesson I learned, or you know what changed me. I think I've learned to not take everything so seriously, because life is too unpredictable. And just really try to be my best self for myself and for others, because you literally don't know how long you're going to be here.
And it's not worth the stress, although it's very hard to control it.
Yeah, very hard. And until this day, I'm better, but I'm still learning. And also it really opened up my attention, or, you know, my awareness of mental health, especially for men. You know, I think men in general anyway, but especially in, you know, in my culture as well, we're not encouraged to talk about our feelings. And I think, you know, Asian men carry so much responsibility from even their parents, you know, the person that they're with, or if they have kids, and it's a lot. And they're very much like, I can take it. I would say it's a cultural thing to kind of just swallow, because we're kind of known to be very polite and very, you know, humble. We're not very good with praises, you know, and compliments, but we're hard workers. In a way, like, you know, there's a lot of good qualities, you know, in those traits, but also not very healthy, because we don't really have that. They don't really have that platform to really talk about how they feel and what they're going through and ask for help. Asking for help is major. That's definitely something I would also, you know, encourage everybody to do, whether or not, whatever background and gender. I think it's important to seek help, and, you know, kind of just have an outlet for you to have someone to share that burden. And that's why I also try my best to, you know, check in with my brother as much as I can too, because he's the same. Like, I think our whole family is like that. We're all like tough. Like, I could handle anything.
You just get on with it.
We just get on with it. Which, you know, when it comes to grieving, you don't do so much with that, or you probably just scrape the surface because you have to get on with it. And I actually do remember my mom and my brother both told me that when I had a breakdown about my dad. You have to get on with it. You have to let it go.
It's just going to eat you up.
Yeah, and I'm sure it also consumed them one way or another.
I think it will manifest if you don't let it out in some way.
Yeah.
Or deal with it. Would you say, so in terms of things that your dad didn't do, in terms of not getting any help or opening up, is that something that you would do, or have you done? Have you had any like professional help?
I haven't had any professional help, but I'd say I have a pretty good support system. Especially like, you know, leaving home is, I catch myself all the time in survival mode too. And it had built really strong calluses, but it's also not very healthy in a sense where I don't hold space for myself to be weak. I don't hold space for myself to not have my shit together, not be okay.
And what's weakness to you? Or is that something you've been taught? That.
Yeah, I think that too, just, you know, dwelling. I don't think dwelling is a good thing, but maybe I was taught that as soon as you hit that space that you're sad or you're grieving, it's a weakness already. Like, it's in the past, you need to move on. You need to just keep going. Because that doesn't help. You can't change anything. Like, it's a lot of that kind of, you know, voices. And I think I have been quite good, I think, to actually allow myself to have those moments, which I also want to, like, bring that to my brother and my mom in a way, even though, you know, they said they had their way to deal with it, but the fact that I felt like it's still a subject that you don't want to talk about, that tells me that we haven't really unpacked.
Yeah.
And it's hard to unpack when you don't actually talk about it. I mean, we can all deal with it on our own, but I think it actually helps if we have each other to talk about and just, you know, even to share some of the memories. And that's all sorts of, like, it's a sort of relief. It doesn't always have to be, you know, a crying fest, you know.
No.
It could literally be just taking the moment to share memories that we have with him. Yeah, and I think it also helped me a lot to actually write things down to communicate with him.
So you've written to him?
Sometimes I don't write to him directly. Sometimes I just write as if I'm just talking out loud. But obviously, you know, when I'm doing it, I'm thinking about him. Yeah, but I've also used that now, actually, as, like, you know, somebody that, you know, I could, or, you know, almost like an outlet or a way to actually share how I feel, not only when I miss him and I write down how much I miss him and, you know, just do the grieving through, you know, writing it down, but just in general.
Yeah.
With a lot of things that sometimes you just feel very trapped, or you can't really articulate or explain how you feel. And I think every one of us had experienced that. It's not that you don't want to share with your closest friend or your partner or whoever you trust them enough to say it, but you haven't even figured it out yourself.
Yeah. And
I think in that time, in that period, it's quite good to just journal it out, just write it out. Like, you don't have to care about no grammars, you know, nothing. It doesn't have to make any sense. You just literally writing it all out. And yeah, that's something is quite helpful for me. And I think, you know, it'd be good, you know, I would say that would be a little piece of advice I would share with others too. Just even though you're not used to writing or you feel uncomfortable doing it, but it's like, do it for yourself. Like, just give it a shot.
Yeah.
It's quite good. It's really, it's good to also, it's a good way to process. Yeah. And to get some clarity. Yeah. Yeah.
Let me ask some of these questions, because I think we've probably, like, covered some of them anyway. How has grief changed you?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think it made me even more open-minded and calm in a way. To actually take a step back when I'm too caught up with something or feel something too like so intensely. It gives you a perspective. Like grief also gave me a perspective of how light some of the other things are.
Yeah.
And it also, like I said, made me more aware about things that we can't see, like stress and like, mental health issues. Like it also gave me a more in-depth lens of other people's suffering. We're all going through, everyone is going through something we don't know. And it has, I think grief also gave me a chance to actually look deeper into myself and what all that means, because I think until now, like, no one can really tell you what grief is about.
No.
It's so personal, but also so indescribable. It's a lot. It's like a lot of knots, and it's very intense, and they come every now and then. But yeah, I think it had changed me for the better. Like, I also think I'm matured a lot from going through like grieving. Yeah.
How old were you?
I was 20.
Oh my gosh, that is really young.
Yeah. And even some days I still, because it just feels like yesterday. It's still like, it doesn't matter, like 10 years sounds so long, but it didn't feel any difference when it was 5 years. It didn't feel any difference when it was 2 years. But time just flies. But the feeling is almost like it, I would say the intensity of grief has not been lightened over the years, but the way you deal with it will get better every day.
Yes. Yeah. I agree with that. I think when you've been through it, you know, and like you said, that to me, there's no words to describe it. You either know or you don't. So we can use the most, elaborate words. Like, it's not, you're just never going to get it until you've been through it.
No.
What's been your biggest lesson?
I guess my biggest lesson would be just really looking into how important communication is. Like, going through what happened to my dad, I think is also a reason why I will not let myself not give it my best to build that with my mom, to help her out as well. Like, I know, all this self-love and like, setting boundaries and learning all these things as well has taught me that, okay, if there's anything that's not healthy for you, regardless if they're your friends or family, you still need to say no. And at first I struggled, because then I felt like when my mom is not in a good place and I could literally feel her dragging me down because I care about it so much, or like me trying to help someone who is sinking but I'm actually not very secure myself in a place where, like, I feel strong and have enough strength to help, I still try and help, and sometimes it becomes just a mess. But now I guess I've gained a new way of looking into it. Obviously, when I'm not in a very good place, I could just communicate that to my mom. That, Mom, I'm so sorry you're feeling this way. I'm here, I'm still here, but I just don't have as much to give today. And sometimes the fact that I've actually tried this kind of communication, I've seen changes in her, having to step her game up and like, oh no, I need to also, you know, pull myself together in a healthy way to have her back.
Yeah.
And so then we now have this really good dynamic of we can lean on each other, but we also communicate when we're just not very good. And it actually helped to strengthen each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's one big lesson, to really like be honest about your feelings and really communicate, and not just communicate, but, you know, understand how to communicate with someone.
Yeah.
Because we're both so sensitive. Super sensitive. Like, yeah, especially when we're already feeling a bit like, you know, and then someone says something, just the tone, not even the words, that's, you know, it's just the tone, and you're like, you know, you could just feel the fire coming out, and you're like, but yeah, I think that's one of the big lessons, and I wish, you know, I wish my dad had, you know, was able to also just lean on us. But I would say the biggest comfort that, you know, I keep reminding myself, like, it is one of the things that I keep reminding myself even from the get-go, to make myself feel a bit better about his passing, is the fact that he actually passed away in the most comfortable way possible.
Yeah.
Like, I think just us as human, like, if we can choose one way to go, it will be when you're sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just to know that he didn't actually go through any physical pain when he passed was like my biggest comfort. And, you know, I just have to see it as like, because I think that it was stress that took him away. So it was important for me to really also look into that department for myself, for my family, because it's definitely a pattern. Yeah, still working on it with my family. It's not easy. It's a constant, you know, battle almost. You just like, you take what you learn and then you almost like recenter and then try again, and then something hit again, and then you know. But I think definitely just in learning about myself too, and it's really helpful when you spend time to kind of look into yourself and like keep asking yourself questions, then just stopping at I'm just this way. But why?
Yes.
Like, I think asking the why is so important.
Yeah.
Because you have to ask yourself, what are you really missing? What is it that what kind of role that he was, what kind of feeling that he gave you? What is it that you're missing really? And what can you do right now in present life to kind of alleviate that?
Yeah.
So it was good that, you know, kind of, you know, going back to lockdown, spending the time to learn about myself, really taking the time off everything to just take care of your soul. And then when, you know, the missing of someone, or like, you know, the grieving hits you again, you now have a better insight and to look into yourself and everything else.
Yeah.
So I would say yeah, that's something that I also, on the positive side, take away from going through like grief and learning from it.
Although grief is a very personal experience, what advice would you give to anyone going through this? You probably already.
Yeah, I feel like I've just talked about. Yeah, just really find time, find ways to talk to yourself, talk to the person that you miss, or talk to people that could relate and is, accessible to you.
Yeah. Having a good support system is
good support system is everything, but there always going to be something that nobody could give you an answer, and it's also an answer that you can't have sometimes right away. Take it easy on yourself, and just really like hold that space. And our minds are very powerful. You can visualize a lot of things, and I think if you need a good cry, maybe you just need to recall like a moment that's very precious to you, that you hold a special place in your heart. Just kind of taking that moment and let it wash over you. Like, it's important to just let that pain, like, feel it. I think it's important to sit and feel. Don't brush it away, and just let it pass. And then whatever you have to do following up that experience, whether it's to talk to somebody, write like, journal it down, write a letter to the person that you miss, like whatever that is, do that, because it's needed. A lot of the times we think, myself do it too, like, whew, that was hard, okay, I mean, that just happened, and then you carry on with things that you have to do. But it's so important to actually pause and hold on. Let me just take a half day off. Let me just take a few hours off. Let me go take a bath and actually cry it all out, you know, whatever.
I think that's where you heal.
Yeah. So I think, it's probably true what they say. You never truly heal from a loss like that. But you also don't need to carry it all the time. And when it hits you, you then take the time out to heal it. And it's like, I feel like it's easier each time on you.
What would you say to yourself in the beginning stages of your grief?
I think it will be the advice that I just shared. I think I didn't do that enough, and I would tell myself not to feel crazy or guilty about feeling so intensely about something. Like I said in the beginning, there were moments I just felt like maybe I'm not matured enough. Maybe I hold on to things in an unhealthy way, but that was all so normal. I would have told myself not to doubt those emotions, not to doubt the way I have dealt with it and how many times I've cried. And I think also actually one of the big lesson in life too from losing my dad is, I know it's so like, such a cliche, but you really, really live in the moment. Just give it your best at all times. And sometimes your best is here.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yes.
I think think regret, I think from my dad passing, I also saw like people around him, or there might be people that, you know, that might have like, you know, had history with him in terms of like with like business or whatever in life. We all have like things that you haven't talked about, but you want to resolve that, and you just didn't know that person was not going to be here the next day.
Yeah.
And I've seen, you know, there are people in his life that wish that they have fixed something with him. Maybe they have like, you know, wronged him in a way. And the way I see them cry, I was also like, oh, I'm so glad I actually don't have regret, which is, I think, a lot of people go through.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, in grief, there's a lot of regrets. And I think regret is really one of the worst thing that a person like need to go through.
Yeah.
Because it is exactly the meaning of you can't do anything about it anymore. Mm-hmm. It's just gonna live there forever.
Yeah.
And
how do you get any resolution?
Yeah, just there's no way out, so you have to live with it. And I think that, you know, just seeing that and understanding that made me realize how much I really don't want that in my life. Mm-hmm. So whatever I do, you know, regardless of, you know, it has to do with grief or not, just like in life in general, I want to make sure that I don't live with any regrets. Mm-hmm. So yeah, just no matter what's going on, just try to give it your best. Yeah.
This is the last question, and I know this is really hard, and that's why I say one of. So what's one of your favourite memories of your dad? Because I was just like,
oh my god, there's so many.
Exactly. How do you decide?
But I guess I've always loved to be carried by, piggybacked by him. So I remember, because I was tiny. I was born like underweight.
Okay.
So I was like 5 pounds, 5 pounds something, like when I was born. So like, you know, my dad would always like carry me like everywhere, just like with one arm I would sit on his shoulders. And I remember even when I was in secondary school, some days like we would still go to grandma's place, which is like, you know, not too far, like next door, but you know, I would always ask him to like carry me. Even when I think I was maybe 15 or 16, I was still once in a blue moon, because I know his back can't take it. So just like once in a blue moon, I'll be like, tonight, feeling powerful tonight. Yeah, he loved it. Because I remember once in a while I would sweet talk him into, you know, picking me up from after school still. Like when I was, it's like, who at that age you just want to hang out with your friends and like go somewhere. You don't want to be seen with your parents.
Yeah.
Right? I just love any time I have with my dad, because I don't know, it's just so, just feels good. I actually never even thought much about it. Like, why did I like to spend time with him so much? But it's because it's always so easy and comforting. Sometimes, you know, I went to all-girls school and there's always drama. I feel like actually my sanctuary was the time I spent with my dad. Just so chill.
Yeah. It's such a connection.
Yeah, and so I remember like one of my favorite moments was one time after school, I sweet talked him into picking me up, and then I was like, let's go for tea, because like we both love food. So I was like, let's go get, you know, tea and stuff, and just like, okay. And so I remember getting out of the car in the parking lot, and then I was just happy. So I just went, like, I held his hand, and we're like walking to the restaurant, and he was like, you know what, I'm just very happy. Like, I'm happy to be your dad.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It was nice. Like, I mean, I was young, so I was like, cute, you know. But I remember him just saying, you know, like, a lot of my friends have kids that's your age. They could even dreamed of their children, like, just holding their hands still and not feel embarrassed or, like, not care about what other people think. And just like you grow older, you don't do those things, and it was never like weird for me. I don't care. Like, I'm just happy too. Yeah. So it was nice, like, to actually hear that from him, and just
he said
such a small
words.
Things, you know, such small things, but it was really nice.
But huge at the same time.
Yeah, huge. Sometimes like the universe is just so mysterious and funny, because even when I moved to the States my first year, I was so busy trying to adapt, I didn't actually get to talk to him all that much. But when I said, like, you know, I was on a Skype call with him, like, right before he passed. It's so funny, that week we talked for like 3-4 times in that week, which is super rare. We don't talk that often because of the time difference and everything, but we just happened to be talking quite a lot. And I remember that was like days before he passed. And one of the Skype calls, he because I was just sharing about all these things that I'm learning and, you know, just yapping away. And at the end of the call, he said, you know, I'm really so proud of you, and I'm glad, even though we have to go through so much, because we were struggling financially, and he even had to, like, borrow money, just God knows from where and how many places or banks, and even maybe from friends and relatives, that he insists on sending me to study abroad when we can't even afford it. That's what also kept me, like, maybe that's why I went to rehearsal. I was like, shit.
Yeah, does that push you
on? Know,
on?
like, it definitely does. It does. And at moments where I doubt myself, I always remind myself that, oh, he believed in me, I better believe in myself. So